Better way to start it off than with the man himself, Don Fischer. Don, how are you, man?
I'm good. I'm doing well, Jim. Maybe if I could talk, I'd be doing better.
You're not here, so you're already doing better. Uh, well, there is a lot to talk about. It's hard to even figure out where to start, but I guess I'll start with Rod Carey. Rod Carey has been named the offensive coordinator for Indiana. Of course, that is a big change. But not only that, Indiana goes and makes another surprising move, and they bring on former Virginia Tech head coach Justin Fuentes as a consultant, I guess, whatever that means. So a lot of cooks in the kitchen here, which I'm not sure is a good thing or bad thing. It seems like it's all going to be helpful, but that's a lot of change in the middle of a football season, probably more so than I've ever seen for any team.
Well, this is the second year in a row that we've had a change, and for the second year in a row, Rod Carey is in the middle of it.
Yeah.
Last year, he was replacing Darren Hiller as the offensive line coach, as everyone knows, midseason, and this year he's now the new offensive coordinator for this Indiana football team. I'm a high guy in regard to what I expect from Rod Carey. I think he's an excellent coach, number one. I think he's always been involved with the offense, number two. He's been an offensive line coach. He's been an offensive coordinator at other schools. He's been a head coach where he had tremendous success in his 9 years as a head man, seven of those bowl teams, or seven bowl teams, six of them at Northern Illinois. I'm a big fan of Rod Carey's. I don't think there's any question this guy will do a great job in that role. And he said in his press conference last Monday or Tuesday, whatever, it was Wednesday, actually, they had the press conference. He said in that press conference, we're going to simplify the offense. We're going to make it a little bit easier to understand. We're going to try to do the things that we do well. What we've shown that we can do well, we're going to do those most of the time, and we'll add some new wrinkles itself. But right now, I don't think he's trying to change a million things for these players because that's a recipe for disaster during the middle of the season.
Absolutely. And you mentioned him being a former head coach, as is Justin Fuentes. And it just makes me think that the most success that Indiana's had under Tom Allen is when he had Kalen DeBoer and Kane Womack, who are both currently head coaches.
Right.
So having that kind of coaching knowledge around you and for these players specifically can only mean good things. We saw what happened with Rod Carey with the offensive line last year. I'm still shocked over the win at Michigan State last year. I don't think I'll ever get over that one. The surprise of that, seriously, of what that they were able to do there and to do it on the road. So I'm not going to be surprised to see some very, very positive changes because there's a lot of talent on that team.
They have talent. There's no question about it. The thing that the Maryland game bothered me, and the thing that bothered me most about the Maryland game, aside from the offensive ineptness in that contest, the thing that bothered me most was the defense in that contest. I just did not understand why the defense did not perform better than they did in that contest. Maybe, I don't know if there was something else going on there, whatever the case may be, to give up 44 points to Maryland, and not saying that Maryland isn't capable of doing that. And a big part of the reason that the defense probably didn't play great was because they were on the field most of the game. But at the same time, I was surprised that the defense did not play a little bit better than they did in that contest. And to me, it was a total dysfunction of the football team in that matchup. And I'm not saying that Maryland shouldn't have beaten Indiana. I think Maryland's a really good football team, but I just thought Indiana would have a better showing that they did. And now we're going to find out if this change makes a difference, because they're going to play a Michigan ball club that might be the best team in the country right now. They are playing.
No question.
They are playing great defense. They are playing great offense. They've given up only no more than 6 or 7 points in any game until they played Minnesota this past weekend, and they beat them 52-10. So I'm telling you.
PJ Fleck said this is the best football team he has seen in his 11 years as a head coach.
Tells you something. I mean, I don't. I mean,
Yeah.
PJ is one of those guys that I don't think he's going to BS you at the end of a ball game like that. And
Yeah. Not when you get beat like that.
right, and I think I think he believes that. And based on what we've seen at this point, I don't know how anybody can question it because they are playing absolutely. Almost, I don't want to say perfect, but when Jim Harbaugh is out there telling you how great they played in this ball game, that's saying something.
Yeah, and he was off fishing for the first 3 games, so he wasn't even there, and they were still doing that.
Right.
So they've got, they're the talent on that team. Ironically, you mentioned how good they are defensively. I was looking at NCAA stats the other day, and 3 out of the 4 top offensive programs or those Pac-12 schools. 3 of the 3 that are coming to the Big Ten. But then, as I looked across the aisle to the defensive standings, number 1 was Michigan at 6 points a game. Number 2 was, I believe, Penn State or Ohio State, and whichever one that wasn't, it was the other. It's Michigan, Penn State, Ohio State, 1, 2, 3 in the country defensively. So that's going to be exciting next year to see that. But getting back to this, Michigan has it all. They've got a solid quarterback in J.J. McCarthy. So they're just a solid football team.
Yeah, they're playing spectacularly right now. And the story in my mind at Michigan is not Blake Corum. It's not J.J. McCarthy. It is the offensive and defensive lines. These guys are playing lights out.
Yep. And that is when you're winning the battle of the trenches, that's where it all starts. And if you protect your quarterback and you're opening the gaps for a guy like Blake Corum and protecting J.J. McCarthy, it's going to be a long day for you.
Well, I think, and I want to go back and look at this now. I think they've only given up 3 sacks in 6 games. so
we don't even know when that came. That could have come probably at the end of a game somewhere.
Right, exactly. So no, we're looking at a football team right now that looks like a juggernaut. And I'm talking about Michigan being that because they haven't played this well since Harbaugh became their head coach. And without doubt, this year they look like right now the best team in the country, in my opinion.
And he hasn't said much either. He's not bragging, and he's a guy that will do that, but he hasn't. I think he is just holding this all in until the last regular season of the game. They play somebody south of there. Ohio State.
Well, they beat him last year. They beat him last year.
Oh, they beat him 2 years in a row now, I think.
Right.
And not only that, he caught so much flack because what did he go, like 0-7 to start?
Right.
And he was really getting, and now he's just living in the glory, I think. But winning a national championship would be different. But that's the kind of team Indiana's going up against this week. And not something else to mention, their backup quarterback, the number 2 quarterback, is Jack Tuttle.
Right. And he's not playing much, but he has completed 5 of his 6 passes.
Yeah, they don't need him. And the one I saw him get in one game, and he got hurt on the play he was in, so he didn't. And he was begging to get back into the game. But getting back to Indiana, going over, probably not the game that you want to restart with the changes they've made. But it is what it is, so you're going to have to deal with that. But they have to look at the schedule beyond that. They have to get through this game. And it's not like you can say, well, we're just giving up on it. But there is just a realism to it and say, we know who they're playing, and I don't care who is going up there. This is the best, probably the best team in the country.
Yeah, I can't argue it. I believe it. I think that they're playing the best of anybody in the country right now. That can change with injuries and those kinds of things. But if they continue the way they're performing right now, they'll go unbeaten on this season.
And more importantly, Indiana still has games on their schedule that what I call are winnable games. Penn State, probably not one of those. But you've got a game against Rutgers, a game against a Wisconsin team that is good, but they've been up and down as well. The Illini, I think, are the worst team in the Big Ten, and that includes Indiana. Michigan State's on there, and Purdue has not had a great season. So there is still at action there. Unbelievably, Indiana still has the opportunity to get to 6 wins, as crazy as that sounds, if they can get a turnaround and get things, like I said, there is talent there. It's got to be used in a proper way, and they've got to do what they need to do.
Well, no question. And Taven Jackson has struggled a little bit here the last couple of weeks. So hopefully it can get turned around for him. Josh Henderson hopefully is back this week. After sitting out the last several ball games because of injury. Another thing that the bye week has done, given these rest of these kids that have been dinged a little bit, an opportunity to get back. Nick Toomer being one of those, because he looked so good in the early part of the season. So hopefully this Indiana football team will go into this Michigan game healthy, that they will go into it with a different mindset, with more positive mindset. And if they do those kinds of things, I think that they'll be competitive in this ball game, at least for a time. I think that's the biggest key, is being competitive in this matchup. I think that will be, if nothing else, and we don't like saying this, but a moral victory if they can compete.
And it really is, because you've got to have some confidence, because I think that's the thing that they have none of right now. They don't have confidence. You talked about the defense. I'm wondering if it's just a mental thing, and you've got to have something that lifts you up, lifts the unit up, tells you that, hey, we've got a shot here. And maybe whether it's Justin Fuentes or Rod Carey, and Justin Fuentes, that's a very interesting ad. You talked about the success of Rod Carey. Justin Fuentes did a good job look at his record at Va-Tech, and it was not bad at all. They had a couple of so-so years at the end, which were like 5-5, 5-6 during the COVID or something. But other than that, they were 7-8 games. So, and that's not an easy place to play over there in the ACC. So he knows what he's doing. So it's going to be interesting to see what both of these coaches can add to this team, more importantly, and to their mental mindset.
Yep. Well, mental is the physical is 4-1. That was Bob Knight's favorite saying, and he's absolutely right. If you believe you can, you got a chance. If you don't believe you can, you got none.
Absolutely. I know you don't follow basketball recruiting because you're smarter than that. You don't get into that mess. But Indiana is they're in the absolute final stages for multiple big-time elite recruits. First of all, that is something that has not happened for a long time. There were some Indiana guys that Indiana was able to land within the state, but to land the elite talent that I'm pretty certain that Liam McNeely is going to end up at Indiana. Boogie Fland is a guard out of New York that I think Indiana has a better chance than people think at landing. Derek Queen, I'm not so sure about, but if they land Boogie Fland and Liam McNeely, that's going to be a gigantic class. But more importantly, that is also selling Mike Woodson's program. It's selling based off of Jalen Hood-Schifino, what his success was, Trace Jackson-Davis, what he's been able to do there. And that message that Mike Woodson is sending is starting to resonate.
Well, you're right. I don't follow recruiting at all, other than to ask a question or two of guys when I'm down there to see if there's recruits that have been on the table, so to speak. And it sounds like we've got probably 3, 4, maybe 5 guys that are really looking strongly at Indiana right now that are of that top ilk of players around the country. So that's a very positive thing in itself, but you got to get them, and you've got to get more than one of them probably if you're going to be exactly where Indiana needs to be in regard to national stature is concerned. So right now, that's the